Welcome, welcome to the Britannia Panopticon, or as it was in the beginning, the Britannia Music Hall. In 1700s, a warehouse was built here, and in 1857, two architects, Gilder and McFarlane, received a commission to build a department store. A department store in the East End of Glasgow? I don't think so. The money and the people who had the money had moved up west. That left no money down here. The conditions were squalid, smelly, dirty, so they decided no department store, we shall build a music hall. And this is what you see here today. They had to beg, borrow and steal material. They needed wood for the stage, they needed wood for the balconies, and they needed expertise. That's where they got ship's carpenters to build the lovely curves in the balcony. So, what sort of acts would you have seen here? Acts would have come on here through the stage door. They would have lasted 5 or 10 minutes, and then straight off into the hansom cab onto the next music hall. What were the audience like? Good question. The audience would have sat here in benches, standing room only in the balconies, and they wanted entertained. Remember that hard life? There was also no toilets in here, and there was no heating as it is today. So the acts would come on. If they were good, they would be applauded and they would stamp their feet. If they weren't good, you had a range of rewards. The audience consisted mainly of working men, and when I say working men, I mean 12 years until they're just about to croak it, and some ladies. We'll go on about the ladies later on. Anyway, the men, the young men, 12 till about their teens, in order to keep themselves warm, what did they use? Horse manure. Don't knock it, it's lovely and warm in those pockets, and when it's done, it makes a satisfying splat when it hits someone. So if they didn't like someone, they would throw the manure at it. What the young chaps used to do, those supermen, they would move down to the corners of the balcony and they would attempt to pee on the act they didn't like. Now, could you imagine being one of the ladies there, the geisha girls, from as far east as Denniston? If the young chaps didn't have full bladders, it would hit their wigs, trickle down their back, and you know how it is when it trickles down your back. Anyway, that was their reward. Now, those rough, tough, jolly sort of fellows, the men working in coal merchants, engineering firms, joineries, they would throw more substantial missiles at you. Not meaning to maim or injure you, but they would let you know their displeasure. Now, the gentler gender, the women, what they used to do, they would work in fruit markets, fish markets. They would bring in a selection of fresh and rotten fruit, fresh and rotten fish entrails, and fresh and rotten fish heads. So you had a choice of missiles from the ladies. What they all would do as well, a carry out in those nights, wasn't your fish and chips, wasn't your deep fried pizza or Mars bars, winkles. And after you'd eaten the meat inside, you were left with a jolly nice missile that you could throw at the acts. So fast forward a bit in time. We now want more upmarket audiences and acts. One thing that used to happen here before they cleaned the act up was in the corner up behind you where you can't see, they found lots of buttons. Where did the buttons come from? The buttons came from men's flies. Why was there men's fly buttons up there? Well, as they were being entertained visually, certain ladies offered a service where they would entertain you emotionally and physically. Anyway, first new manager attempted to clean that up. So he took out some of the benches and put in some nice seats and seating on the balconies and even boxes at the back. And that was the Panopticon for a good number of years. And then, to fast forward even further, in 1906 or thereabouts, a new manager took over, Mr. A.E. Pickard, an eccentric from Yorkshire. Now, Mr. Pickard had an eye for money. He was from Yorkshire. What he did was the basement downstairs, where we canna go because it's haunted, he put in 42 cages, 2 bears, 2 monkeys, Solomon and Solomon's wife Betsy, he had them married, and various other animals. Up there, not in heaven, but in the next floor above this, he put in a waxworks, an amusement arcade, and a freak show. And if you look round the corners here, you will see some pictures of those pitiful, sorrowful individuals labelled freaks. Now, back to Solomon and Betsy. Solomon and Betsy were done up very posh. Solomon wore this, not this actual suit, but one like it, a carnation, a stick or an umbrella. Betsy with her nice frock from Paris and her parasol even, were parading in the Trongate to advertise the place. Now, Betsy had a liking for young men, and as she tried to entice them over, a crowd would gather to watch the antics. And as they were doing that, guess what Solomon was doing? He was looking in the bags, he was looking in the pockets for the shiny baubles. So that was Solomon and Betsy. However, Mr. Pickard brought some good famous stars to us. We had a young Arthur Stanley Jeffries, who performed here on this very stage when he was 16-year-old, his debut as a comedian. His jokes didn't go down too well, but he got nervous because his jokes didn't go down too well, and he noticed his father in the audience, and his father did not want him on stage. Anyway, he got very nervous, his hat fell off and got flattened, somebody trying to retrieve it. A scenery hook caught his dad's coat, which he was wearing to try and make himself look like a tramp, and it ripped it right up the back. So his facial expressions and his physical performance, the audience thought that was part of the act, and they loved it. So, gone from stand-up comedy to slapstick. On the other hand, that man over there, that's not me, believe it or not. That's a young Jack Buchanan from Helensburgh. Again, young man, had his debut on this stage. And lastly, Archie Leach, Cary Grant, may have swung from the trapeze up there. He may not have. He may have juggled on the stage. He may have tumbled on the stage. He was an acrobat. And until he went to America, where he went over with a trapeze circus, he was an acrobat, and then he became the actor that we probably all know and have heard about. So folks, after Mr. Pickard got fed up with the building, he closed off the music hall part and started showing films instead. cinema or animated pictures were becoming big business. And eventually he got fed up with that, closed the cinema, sold the building to a tailoring company. And in this floor they had the manufacture and storage of clothes, false ceiling over there, false wall up there to keep the place warm, to conserve the heat. And so up there nothing was known about except for a short period during the Second World War where they had a chicken farm. And then it fell into disuse until a certain Judith Bowers came by and wanted to see in here, and the rest is history. We now have our oldest working music hall in the world. Good day.